Finance meeting is Thursday, October 1st, 9 a.m. There's the agenda right there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I got a vehicle on there too. I'm remember the 30 pound
Great.
fiberglass boat. You got it.
I'm gonna have to start, I think I'm gonna have to get on the city's payroll. How many city meetings I go to now?
There you go.
Right? I say that jokingly.
You can have my job.
Because you are indirectly.
I sense the humor in that. I sense the humor. I got your thing. Okay, we're waiting to get Councilor Kennard online, and then we're going to get started.
For your reading enjoyment later.
Oh, can Margaret, can you hear me? Margaret's on GoToMeeting. Can you hear me on GoToMeeting? If you can hear me and for some reason we can't hear you, if you'll text me or something. Are you there? Hey, were you not able to get on? Councilor Kenner, can you go ahead and give us a verbal confirmation that we can hear you? Can you give me a verbal confirmation, Councilor Kenner?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. We got you now. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
It is Monday, September 28th, 4:03 p.m. Bad committee chair starting the meeting late. Let's get this meeting started. If we could get a roll call, please. Here.
Present.
Here.
Good. Could we get a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes of August 24th, 2020.
A second? Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? A motion passes. Okay, non-action items. Number 2, Louis, your show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee and guests. Project update discussion. Next slide. I'm going to go over some of the projects, and the first one I want to talk about is the 5th Street alley sewer behind the park there on 5th Street, east of Garden. Picture on the left is what it looked like before. Of course, what you can't see underground was that all the roots and everything else that was happening with the sewer line and some flat spots. And the picture on the right is afterwards. We actually had the easement reestablished. We've taken over it again. New sewer line. The gas company also went in there, put a new gas line. And now the sewer guys can go in there and answer any calls. We added some manholes. And at the very end of the line, because there's a dead end line at the very end at Garden, we put a manhole there too, so they can actually access with the rotting equipment and take care of business. So, very successful project and within budget. And just want to show you this project.
Is that alleyway narrower than normal?
It's only a 10-foot easement.
Okay, so it's,
We call it an alley, but in actuality, it had people's fences all over it and some sheds, and of course, trees were right down the middle. But now it's cleaned up, and we have electric overhead, we have CenturyLink underground, we have gas company underground, and sewer underground. So now all the utility companies can service their customers.
great.
Any other questions on this project? Okay, item 2, project updates, Main and Country Club Road. On the picture on the left, that was the light standard going up. On the picture on the right, that's some of the concrete work that was done. We redid the fillets, redid some of the driveway pads. It went a little bit slower than usual, but nothing unusual, because when they started digging, whenever they built the last project, they put concrete around the gas line. And when you try to jackhammer that, it's kind of hard to do it. So we had to call the gas company to come in and relocate their line so then we could jackhammer and remove some of the concrete. Counselors, we do have, and Mayor, we do have the photo op October 1st, 11 o'clock. And we'll meet at the Valley Bank corner. Just to give you a heads up, Wednesday afternoon, the light will go into 4-way flash, 4-way stop. It's the last call before we turn it on Thursday at 11. So Thursday 11, when we finally do it, then it'll be complete and back in action. And I stand for any questions on this one. Okay, item 2, the water towers. The picture on the left is, if you can see the stripe work, it's called the stripe coat. That's an extra layer of the epoxy lining or the coating that goes over all the welds. Those are all your welds on the plates. And then the picture on the right is today's picture. You can see where they got the first coat of the steel tank or partial coat. So hopefully next week we'll be able to see the new emblem over there on that tower. Next one. Next slide. Garden Bridge. I got bad news and I got good news. And if this was a country song, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any no luck at all. Today, the guys were going to just do standard, remove a concrete collar, and pour a new concrete collar because we had a loose, and you've all driven them all over town and used manhole lid. Well, guess what? It was more than a loose lid and a loose collar. So, if you look at the pictures, the type right, that should have been a nice concrete cone. As you look at the kind of right side of the elliptical and the left side, you can see the difference in depth. The cone's almost rotted out. So if you can picture, we got the manhole standing up like this, and then we have a cone on top, which is a concrete cone. Well, the concrete cone, and we haven't measured it, but half the thickness is already gone. So, next slide. Next slide, and we've lost a lot of it. If you can see that yellow caking around there, that's hydrogen sulfide. That's the buildup that's been eating that ate the cone, and that's eating the concrete bricks. The smell that people smell with the sewer is actually H2S gas, hydrogen sulfide. Next slide. You can see my white circle there. The bottom of the concrete manhole has already lost part of the wall. So the good news is Another delay, the Garden Bridge. The bad news is another delay. The good news is it didn't happen and collapse while under traffic. This is a 24-inch sewer line. It's not a little line. This is one of our bigger manholes, almost in the center of the northbound lanes. If it would collapse under truckloads, we would have a big problem. What we're going to do, we're going to excavate around it. They started excavating it today, so it's kind of like exploratory surgery. But the general idea is to excavate around it, build another manhole outside of this manhole so we can keep the line going and not have to shut down the sewer line or do some expensive bypass pumping, and then pour another cone on top. The difference is now if we use a concrete cone or anything concrete, we now coat it with epoxy to fight the H2S gas. And this just gives you insight of the stuff that we have at the old infrastructure and what sewer gas will do to concrete and brick both. So I know it's going to be a delay to the bridge, another delay, but again, it's a good thing that we didn't interrupt the traffic and lose a livestock truck or a heavy semi truck in the sewer and somebody get hurt, and then we have to bypass and that kind of stuff.
Mr. Nar,
Yes.
hate to ask, but estimated time of delay, how much more time is it going to add to the?
We're already digging now, probably another couple of weeks. So October 16th was the target. I'm hoping, again, this is all speculative right now because we're doing excavating and we're finding more as we go today. Maybe by Halloween we would have it open.
Okay, so the goal, we'll call it the goal, is to have it open by Halloween.
The goal now is to have it by Halloween.
Okay.
And the idea is going to be, can we get the parts? Because we have to excavate it and see what size diameter exterior manhole we'll put, and then we have to order a cone to put on top of it. And who's got one available? Are we going to El Paso? Are we going to Texas? Are we going to Albuquerque to have one delivered? The fortunate thing is that the contractor for the bridge, Abraham Construction, they are a concrete contractor, and they're already on it. They're already digging it out. The next question might be funding. There'll be, utility will have to pay for this since it's in the utility realm. So,
I know there's a lot of sensitivity in the public about that bridge being closed. They want it open soon. I know you guys are working hard on it, so.
well, and again, if this was a country song, if it wasn't for bad luck, we wouldn't have any luck at all. It's just, and every now and then you get those kind of projects.
Yeah.
In my 40-plus years, I've had more than one.
Okay.
Any more questions on the bridge? Any questions on the project update report in your handout? Would you like any specifics? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, potential air center projects.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, committee. On your handout, I've got a list of projects, and I started with the number 1, which is already has some committed funding by the county out of the $5 million that the state gave to the county. So that I wanted to list that one there to start with, because that $3 million of the 5 has already been committed, which may leave us another $2 million.
Scott?
Yes?
So, let me interrupt. Let me go and set this up for
Okay.
people. So,
Sure.
So as the counselors will know, and most people in the room know, is that there was an allocation of $5 million given from the governor to the county
Correct.
to do work on the city airport. And so this is an effort to coordinate with them, and this is an opportunity for us to create a list of projects that we feel like meet the qualifications of the allocation from the governor, and to sort of say, hey, this is a list of projects that we would like to see happen. We're going to give this list to them. It's not any sort of ultimatum or trying to tell them what to do. Ultimately, they have to decide. The $5 million is in their pocket. They have to decide how they spend it, but we thought that we'd reach out to them as we're trying to improve communications with the county on the airport and say, okay, here's a list of things that we feel like that meet that, and kind of give them a whole list of things that we'd like to see done potentially. And hopefully one or two or several of these things on this list will meet their criteria of what they're trying to get done, and they'll be able to release those funds to do that. This does not preclude them coming back to us with a different idea as well. So the reason why this is in committee is this is the whole air center has a political bent to it, and we felt that it would be good for a committee to hear it, so that the council, at least some members of the council in this committee, would be aware of this going on. Ultimately, this is the city staff communicating with the county staff. So I just wanted to kind of set that up. And so Mr. Stark is presenting a list of potential projects that the staff is going to be recommending to the county for possible use of that $5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So with that said, I kind of threw a lot of projects out there that we've talked about internally for a while. Some of them will look familiar to you because they're on the ICIP. I tried to pick projects that have no other funding source, so that they're not already anticipated funding by FAA or anticipated by the state or something of that nature. And I only prioritized the top three. Obviously, the number one project, because it was announced today, is the top priority for us. Second to that is another project that we're working on for expansion of Hangar 84. If you look on your map, even as big as that is, kind of hard to see, but you can see Hangar 85 up at the northeast end of the ramp. The next one to the south of that, the smaller blue one, that's Hangar 84. The goal of that project would be to expand the size of Hangar 84 so that it could accommodate a Boeing 767. Right now, the largest aircraft that it can get
Do we have
fully...
a laser pointer? Do we have a laser we could give him? Is there a laser in that clicker thing over there?
That would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Because unlike the mayor, I don't have the airport property memorized.
It's easier to point than to describe, if I can work this thing. Look at there. Okay, so that is Hangar 84 right there. And the purpose of this project would be to expand it so that it could get a Boeing 767 into the hangar. At this point, the largest aircraft that can go fully inside the hangar is a MD-80. You can get the front end of a lot of other ones in there, 757, 737, but the tails are all too high. So why do we want to get a Boeing 767 in there? Many of the things that are maintenance-wise done on aircraft are required by the FAA to be done indoors. And one of the major things that we're seeing these days with the change in both culture and effect of the coronavirus is that we're seeing more air freight happen. So the potential there is to convert these 767s into freighters. And that's why the 767 size is important to get that indoors. That job of converting that aircraft into a cargo aircraft is required to be indoors. So talking to Kavu about what that would cost, what that would do for us in terms of jobs immediately in the first year would be 15 to 20 jobs. Over 10 years, if those jobs don't go up, that equates to about $10.8 million in economic impact to the community for 10 years. The total for the project is $5 to $6 million. What we would be looking for that project would be about $3 million to meet the rest of what the EDA grant that we applied for does not meet, because that's the other half of the funding. So we have at least applied for a grant for half of it. We don't know where the other half is coming from. Immediate need, we need a tear down pad over on the southeast part of the airport, over in this area where the other tear-down pads are. The reason for that, right now, AirSail has a tear-down pad right in this area, and it's crumbling, to be honest. It needs to be replaced. It's in a bad spot aesthetically. It's in a bad spot for the prevailing winds blowing trash across the runway, and it's falling apart. So we're trying to get them off of that tear-down pad by the end of the year and have it replaced. So that's where the need for that one is. Does it create jobs? It probably saves jobs that already exist. It might create jobs. It's possible, but I don't have any way of knowing what that number is. Impact to the community over the future. Again, it's also more of I think, of saving things. What it does is it allows AirSail to continue to do aircraft demolition here in Roswell rather than having to do that somewhere else. So those jobs could go somewhere else, those aircraft could go somewhere else to be demolished, or they could be kept here. So that's the purpose of creating that tear-down pad. Go ahead.
What are the possible locations where you think about putting the new
So,
one? Because
what-
obviously you don't want to put it back in the same place because it's,
No, what we're looking at right now, there's a tear-down pad right here, and there's one right here, and we've marked off this whole area right here for additional tear-down pads. So we would put that one there. If anyone else wants to build one, we would put them over there, so they're all in the same area. That way we don't have messy places that are all over the airport, potentially causing trash issues on the airport and that sort of thing.
what is the, as far as AirSail or any other person who wants to tear down an airplane, is there any major disadvantage of having it down that far away?
Mostly just that it's away from the public vision for the most part, so you've got the aesthetic issue. And then the other, of course, the wind is mostly prevailing from the west in this area.
But for the businesses themselves?
For the businesses themselves? Not particularly, other than just it's dedicated area.
Okay.
They do agree that that's a good area. They all like that. It's not something that we're forcing anyone to go to that area. They like the area.
Okay.
So the cost on that would be about $1.5 million. And then I've got a laundry list of other things after that. Terminal expansion design, same thing there. It's not necessary. We don't know what jobs it would create. It obviously would create a few if we're able to add airlines. We would have a few people that would work the baggage and the counters and those type of things that would be additional. The bigger impact is harder to calculate because it's an impact to the community. I've mentioned before, I think, at other times that we lose about 63 to 64% of people who live in the area and buy a ticket and go fly on an airplane. About 63 to 64% of those folks go to another airport to do it. So we're keeping 36, 37% here in Roswell. We want to keep them all in Roswell. We want them all to get on a plane and fly to their destination from here. So expanding that terminal, of course, is very important. Even, maybe not today, while our passenger traffic numbers are way down, but a year from now, it could easily be a very different story, and we expect the demand to continue to grow. So what that does for the community, of course, is it makes us more sellable as a community to those that want to do business in the community, not just the airport, but the whole community. Because one thing every business wants is they want good air service. So that's where that impact comes from. The cost of that would be roughly $2.5 million just for the design. And that would be the first step. Of course, there's much more after that. You start looking at the different phases to complete the project, and you're into a total of 20 to 25 million for the whole thing, including the design. But I only mentioned the design here. One of the things that we talk about a lot is things that need to be fixed with our existing infrastructure, with our existing buildings, with our existing taxiways, roads, all of those types of things. And one thing that comes up often is the fire suppression. So what we're looking at is Hangar 85, Hangar 84, 50, 58 and 66, all of the smaller hangars that have flight leases, except for 1536 right there. None of them have fire suppression. and all of them are required to have fire suppression by modern code. So we're grandfathered in because that occupational use has not ever changed. But in the long run, it's something that we want to do for the safety of our tenants, for the safety of our public. And in the bigger hangars, without having that fire suppression, we're not able to bring in military contracts. That's something that they require. That's actually the reason that 1536 has fire suppression, because when I-3 was using that hangar, the military required that fire suppression to be put in, so it got put in. But it's a long-term project. I put $3 million in there. That's honestly, that's a very rough estimate. It might be a lot more than that when we look at all of them. But just to kind of stay in the ballpark of what we're talking about, I put a $3 million estimate on it, but that's purely mine, and I thought it up on my own. I don't have any basis to put that on, but I guarantee you it'll be that much. It could easily be more. Then we come to the southeast development. There's a lot that we would like to do over in this area with expanding the airport. We would put a taxiway, if we're talking the big picture, a taxiway all the way down here. And then you can build hangars all in this area. Now, we don't have the demand for that at the moment. We do still have infill areas on the other side of the airport, such as the Ascent hangar, which was going to be in this area. We have an area up here where we could build a hangar, and once we clean off that tear-down pad, we'll have an empty spot there that another smaller hangar could go. Probably not a 777 hangar, but maybe something smaller. So we have some infill that we could still do, but in the long run, if the demand increases for it, and we hope it does, of course, but this becomes the developable side for more large hangars, for anybody who wants to come in and we've been talking to Mitsubishi, which I don't think that they're necessarily in the game right now because of everything with aircraft development, but that would be a good example. If they wanted to come in and put a facility in, it would be prime to go over here. If Boeing, for example, and we are not talking to them about a facility, but if they wanted to put a facility in, that would go over here. So with the idea of doing that a little bit at a time and attracting those people to this airport, it's a very big project to put 10, 12, 13,000 feet of taxiway along that side. So you almost have got to do it a little piece at a time, and that's what this line is a partial construction of taxiway, whatever $2 million will buy. That is most likely something along the lines of, this is taxiway delta, so on the other side you would need a connector to come out, and then you might get a little bit further up toward the north with that piece of taxiway. And then, would it be good for anything? Not yet, but it would be a piece of the future, is what it would be. So, the one thing that it could serve for us in the meantime, while it's not being used as a taxiway, is we always need somewhere for aircraft to go and do high-powered jet run-ups. And that's problematic. They have to face into the wind so their engines don't stall. So that's problematic to find places to do that. We usually use the north run-up area here and the south run-up area here. But the more options we have to park an airplane and turn it into the wind, the better off we are. So that concrete being out here could give us options to turn different directions and turn into the wind for them. It could help resolve it, temporarily at least, resolve a problem. Aircraft rescue and firefighter training facility. We are required as a commercial airport by the FAA for our firefighters to have airport rescue and firefighter live burn training annually. That used to happen over in Socorro when they had their training facility there, but it has since been decertified, and Socorro is not willing to put the money back into it, and so that facility has actually been closed for quite a while. So we've been relying on Kirtland Air Force Base, on Cannon Air Force Base, and going out of state to do that. When we go out of state, there's quite a bit of travel money to take all our firefighters out to Texas to do that. Normally it's College Station, but it could be Dallas-Fort Worth, it could be Lubbock. All of those places also have the training. But the problem really, that's only a temporary solution, going to those places. There's no place in this state that does that. Every other airport except Albuquerque is in the same boat that we are. Albuquerque, of course, has Kirtland right there on site, so Kirtland makes sure that they stay trained. It's in their best interest to do so. But they don't necessarily do that for everyone else. So that's the need for this training facility. Jobs created, may create a few. It's certainly an opportunity for our fire department to run this training facility or to contract it out. But the good thing is that we would ensure that we have that training available every year by doing that. The impact to the community is it's a little cheaper to do the training here if it's our facility. Cost of that would be about $2.5 million. The next one, widening taxiway Bravo to 75 feet. Half of the taxiway, which we're talking about, is the long one right here. Half of that taxiway from this point, from this point up is 50 feet wide. It's 75 feet wide down that way. The standard is 75 feet for the type of aircraft that we drive on that taxiway, up to a 777, up to a 747. With a 50-foot wide taxiway, the gear spread on a 777 is 35 feet. So you really do not have much space on either side of those gear. You've got to stay right on the center line or you're running off the edge of that taxiway. And that's the purpose for going wider with that. It's a need. It doesn't necessarily create any jobs. It doesn't necessarily have any economic impact other than what you might say if they don't come here. So, but it is a need. That's estimated at about $3.95 million. I'm sorry, $3,950,000. T-hangers, and I'll kind of throw these next two together because they're not the same project, but they do partially meet the same need. Our current T-hangers, which we have 10, were moved over to the air center from the old municipal airport. So they are approximately 65, 70 years old. They're old. I don't know exactly when they were built, but they've been sitting on our airport now for 50 years. So they're old. They're holding up, but they need a lot of work. They're really not worth putting the money into. What we need to do is replace them. They're full, so we do need at least 10 of them just to just to house the airplanes that are currently in there. That wouldn't necessarily create any jobs. It wouldn't necessarily have a huge impact on the economy, except that as we develop the aviation economy at the airport, these mechanics, these pilots, these executives that are coming in with these businesses, some of them have their own airplanes. So having a place for them to put their airplanes is a huge benefit to those businesses whom we're trying to entice. So it's kind of an indirect benefit. It's not a direct benefit, but it's something that we would like to continue to support with our infrastructure. So the 10 would be a beginning. It's $1 million for 10, roughly, when you include the apron and taxiways running to them. So you can multiply that. If you wanted to build 20, it's $2 million. If you look at just airplane shelters for people who just want to get their plane out of the sun, that's another option. It's not an enclosed, it's like a patio cover. It's not an enclosed shelter. That basically does the same thing, except that you get your plane out of the sun. You're not able to store any supplies or any of that type of thing in it. But that's about $800,000 for that apron and that structure. That would be about 10 of those. One more need that we have is our terminal has no backup generator at this point. If we lose the electricity, we just lose the electricity. We're out like anybody else. Makes it difficult to work if we're loading a flight or unloading a flight. The lights go out, all the computers go out. It's like when you go to Walmart and the computers are out. Nobody knows how to check you out. I'm afraid our airline service is the same way these days. They can't do it without the computers. And then there's the security side of it for us. We do have some backup batteries on our security stuff, but it'll only last for a certain amount of time. So having the generator there to back that up would be a great plus. And That's the end of the list that I put together earlier today, but quite honestly, on my way over here in the car, I thought of 3 more that I should have put on here, so I'll mention them as well. I don't have cost numbers for them, but I think they're important projects that need to be done at some point. The intersection of, and I'll make it really, it's really 2 intersections, but I'll consider all one project. The intersection of Earl Cummings, Hobson Road, and Highway 285. We've talked about that internally as being a very important route off of Highway 285 Southeast Main into the airport as an alternative route into the airport rather than South Main. That's not only for the industrial side of the airport, but if you're coming from Artesia, Carlsbad to get on an airplane, you're not going to go all the way up into town and get on Main Street. You're going to come in that way. And as it sits right now, it's a rural road that is 2 lanes wide and is not the best for traffic flow going into that side of the airport. But it is, if you could 4-lane that and streamline it and make that join into Earl Cummings, then that's a great alternative coming into the airport. What that would cost, it'd be in the millions, 5-6 million. I don't know what that costs, but that's an important project that I think would give us a really good flow into that side of the airport. Another thing that as we...
Pardon?
Uh-huh.
Mr. Nara wanted to mention something on that road.
On the Hobson project from Earl Cummings East, I call Earl Cummings East to Southeast Main, US 285, the plans are complete. That would not be a 4-lane because the right-of-way is not big enough for a 4-lane, but we've already completed the plans for making it, rehabbing the lanes, adding shoulders, redoing the intersection at Hobson and Earl Cummings East, and taking it to our property line, which is the YO Road. And we've already talking to the DOT, because they're doing a project, and the county from Southeast Maine to tying into our right-of-way. Our portion would be $1.7 million to redo that portion of Hobson. The plans are complete, they're sitting on the shelf, and we could build it if we had the funds. Thank you.
Thank you. So, like I said, I didn't know the numbers, but that fits right in number-wise with the numbers that we're looking at. Another idea, don't know the cost of this, but we've talked about expanding our ability to do rail work out at the air center. So we have some property that, as we replat, rearrange over north of Ergon, that area, where we could put in a few small rail spurs. I don't know what that really looks like. I'm not a railroad expert by any means, but that does give us an opportunity to use the rail a little differently than what we might. So if we had time to take a look at that and maybe some demand for that might be also a good idea, way to use the money. Additional parking for aircraft storage. At this point, this morning, there's 486 airliners stored on our airport. We estimate that we probably have room for somewhere around 100 more, depending on the types of aircraft that come in. And then we will be out of our existing storage space. We do still have a lot of flat land that's available for use if it would support the aircraft. So that's a concept that we've been talking about, whether we should expand our storage area or not. It's really pretty dynamic as to whether we do or we don't. We kind of have to see what that demand really looks like over the next year, because we're not done with airplanes coming out of service yet. What we're seeing out there is a contact by another smaller foreign air. We've had 2 smaller foreign airlines that have contacted our tenants, and one of them is already bringing airplanes in. We get a lot of our cork bobbing, if you will, from others. So we really think we'll get another 5, another 10 from the smaller foreign airlines, from the aircraft leasing companies who really haven't figured out what they're going to do with their aircraft yet. They really don't have anywhere to park them. They don't own any spaces at gates or airports. So when the airlines say, okay, our lease is done, it's over, they need somewhere to take them. And so the airlines will make their own priorities and keep the ones in service that they need to, but as they become a lower priority for revenue generation, then those will start coming to us. So we expect over the next year to still see quite a bit more demand for aircraft storage and parking. And that's what would be driving this. And the idea behind the expansion would not be to pave hundreds of acres with gravel or asphalt, but look at what it would take to put a pathway in that's maybe 50 feet wide so you can get any size aircraft in there, and then do the same thing, do turn-off spots where you would put gravel to support them, but you wouldn't put gravel over the whole thing. What that costs depends on how much area you cover. And that's all I have for now. Happy to answer any other questions. Happy to brainstorm over more ideas.
Any comments from the committee? Questions? Okay. If not, so we're not voting on this at all. This is a staff-to-staff transaction, like I said earlier, and I know that this came to you pretty shortly. So what I would love to see is when you have this all detailed out, whatever we're going to send over to the county, and hopefully that'll be, I don't know what timeline Joe has you on, but hopefully it'll be pretty soon, the next couple of days or week or so. If we could get a copy of it, just have Joe maybe send that out to the entire council, and just so they can be in on the loop, and then I would just get that over there so that we've done our due diligence as far as presenting ideas about things we feel like that money can be for. And if somebody has more information, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the $3 million, I think, has been basically, based on the press release that came out, is pretty much committed to the Ascent project. Is that correct? Somebody I thought who knew more than me told me that earlier, but nothing in writing. So, but that's. But the good thing about that press release coming out is that now we have a public commitment by the state to support the project, which we're excited about, and so. And I think that as much as we can get from this money to go to that, obviously, I think that's a great number one, because that's the most immediate need. We have a bird in hand, so to speak. Assuming, like these things, well, they can always fall apart. It's amazing, but from everybody I've talked to, it seems like this is something that if we can get it all worked out, it's gonna move forward. So, all right, if there are any further comments, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Stark.
Thank you.
Now we're on to item number 4, OMA conceptual plan.
Good afternoon. Currently, the city has 2 grants through the Capital Outlay process for 2 projects inside the Ciela Grande Sports Complex. The first one is $850,000 for the development of 2 new baseball fields. The second is about $1.4 million for the development of an all-inclusive park. Now, for staff to be able to do its job to start with this development, we want to look at a master plan that would be approved so that the funds can be spent on construction of these projects. Basically, we want to try to get a finalized plan in place so that we can properly design the infrastructure that would support these type of uses. And also, we're kind of looking for a master plan approval for conceptual approval at this point. Just like we did with the housing stuff, we're not looking for final approval, but conceptual approval for all 4 quadrants of the old municipal airport. Now, this is the general layout that you guys have been looking at for a few years. First off, we've got the northeast quadrant, primarily low residential is anticipated. We have some uses up there, game and fish, noon ops, Little League system is up there, the Joy Center, and some fraternal organizations. Down in the southwest quadrant, it's anticipated to be residential, low density, very low residential, and low res, even lower densities than what we have in the R1. The northwest quadrant is anticipated, at least in this plan, to be medium density and high density, with commercial located in a new plaza, as well as at the commercial corner located right at College and Sycamore. Now, I missed it there. Okay. Just a little bit more detail on the northeast quadrant. You can see basically all the components that we talked about.
Single family, we've got a flowway that we have to kind of maintain. That's the drain, if you would, for everything that's works in the above Old Municipal Airport, Game and Fish, Noonop. A little bit more detail on the bottom, the southwest quadrant. We're talking about densities anywhere from 1/2 to 1 acres on the very closest sections to the Nancy Lopez Golf Course. Creating a new roadway, which we kind of need to cut that big block up, and then having single family anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 acre. That would be consistent with that area. You can see the anticipated gross density units there. And of course, the northwest quadrant is a little bit more detail here. We're talking about townhouses, apartments as you get closer, and then the plaza. And this would be the kind of the center of designed to be a very active place. Intended to be, the plaza is not a big place. It's only about 1.25 acres, and that's all about what you want it to be. So it's intimate, large sidewalks, so you can have outdoor venues, see what's going on. Parking just like we have right now in the downtown, as well as parking around the plaza. But we really want to concentrate on this one, the Ciela Grande. Right now, out there, we have the football and the soccer complex. We have the new, obviously, the new recreation and aquatic center. We have a partially completed amphitheater. That's the hill with the trees on it. But the actual stage components were never completed. And then we have this detention area that's down to the southeast part of it, connected by a canal, and that provides the drainage for the soccer fields. And in this area here, we're looking to locate those 2 new Little League-sized tournament play fields, two cloverleafs. And then we're looking over in here, generally speaking, for the development of an all-inclusive park. And this is kind of what we were looking at with the ball fields. The intent here would be that each of the 2 remaining leagues would have one of those clovers. And they would use their existing fields for practice, but this would be for tournament play, and each one of those has its own concession stand inside. And that would be there. And so the proposed use for the $850,000 would be towards a master plan approval, or a formal master plan, and engineering plans to make sure that we get our utilities properly sized and in the proper locations for future development. And then the construction of a new primary roadway through the site that would connect the ball fields with both College and Montana. An additional benefit of this particular road, there's a travel way, but it's not a real road, would be to allow access to also for the all-inclusive park. As we said, this is basically discussed with both Noonop and Alliance Hondo. Now over here, we were going to put in originally this is an initial display, a new eastern side access point off of, basically it lines up with Stone, and then provide an access onto the parking lot that's where the back parking lot for the recreation center. These are the features that we were looking at: the all-inclusive park area, a dancing fountain zone, a sensory park or 2, picnic shelters that could be used, landscaping, a parking lot, and also an entry feature that would be paid for by the Kiwanis. Something along these lines. This isn't it. It's just the idea, think Game and Fish type of gate. But after some discussion internally, we thought, well, why don't we just slide this thing up to the north and utilize the parking lot that's already there. It's an underutilized parking lot. There's plenty of space right now. And so we kind of slid it up there, and then we like this orientation better. And discussions with Jim Burris, this is the one he would prefer. It allows him some more space for future expansions. And also we saved on costs for we don't have to build another parking lot or install lights. They're already here. And so this has been presented. It's going to go to council next week. It does say infrastructure or legal committee, finance committee. We already sent that one. It's a little bit different. The schedule's a little different than the agenda, but we've hit all the committees here. And as I said, we plan on taking this to City Council for final discussion, resolution, October 8th. Stand for any questions.
Questions? So this is going to, what committee did this go through?
It's going, okay, go ahead.
As far as voting standpoint, I know you're presenting it.
It's been, actually, it's just been presented just like we did with the housing. There's a concept plan, so there's not, like we did with the housing development, there's no formal resolution.
Yeah, so and we've had this, I've seen this plan, I don't know, a half dozen times over the past couple of years, and there's some things I like about it, some things I don't, but this plan is the what, not the why. And we have to have that discussion. I've had conversations in open meetings, and I've had conversations with Joe about that, and some other staff members. We need something, if you guys need approval on something, from my point of view, we need something presented that's narrowly focused on the ballparks and the all-inclusive park. I'm not comfortable with, even at a conceptual level, approving any of the other quadrants or anything else right now until we have a long discussion on the why are we going to do these things. And so I'm disappointed that, and I know there's other counselors that have made similar comments. I'm disappointed that nothing in this presentation has changed to reflect any of that feedback. But I would encourage staff to think about trying to focus this in, and I've encouraged it before, both in public meeting and in meetings with staff. The encourage that we need to give us an opportunity to vote on something that's focused on just those two projects until we have time to really dive into the why. There's a lot of discussions about parks in this town. What parks should we have? Why should we have them? There's a lot of councils with a lot of different opinions on there. We have not had a chance as a council to come together and really come up with our values. Even for Ciela Grande, obviously Ciela Grande was originally designed to be with an amphitheater and stuff like that. There's in some master plans it has some different uses and turning it into a sports complex. And so I think that we need to, all those different possible potential uses need to be discussed. Certainly, several councilors have expressed reservation about using the southwest quadrant and letting all that land go as opposed to holding it for potential future city use. So there's a lot of questions there that we've been asking, and we need to have the forum. We need to have some sort of forum, and there needs to be some sort of process where we go through and discuss those and figure out what the values are of this community versus, because these are the whats, but too often we put the whats in front of the whys. And I know that making the plan stuff exciting, but until we've determined, okay, why do we need this many football fields? Why do we need these things? It's really hard for me to, because what we don't need is another master plan that we've approved that we really haven't thought through and we really don't believe in. So that's my hesitation on that and my feedback on that. Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Peterson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make a comment in general about, all these new ball fields and all this park. Everything's going to Ciela Grande. What about the rest of Roswell? We have parks, on South Main, there's a couple of parks that are terrible. There's other places, South Sunset, there's no parks in that area. There's a huge field on west of Roswell by El Capitan. There's nothing there. Why does everything have to go to Ciela Grande? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think those are exactly the conversations that we need to be having. We need to have all these, what's our big picture plan for parks for the entire city? And then we can kind of drill down from there about what needs to go where. So in that regard, I know we have to spend some of this money from the state, and we certainly want to get this the all-inclusive park going as fast as possible and figure out with the baseball stuff, but try to keep it narrow, bring it in and focus it narrowly.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like you to point
Sure, go
out that when I first got here, that this general direction was provided by the city council. They wanted a mixed-use plan of some sort. So this is kind of where this has been going from. Now, with respect to the infrastructure, all we're asking for is some kind of general guidelines, because to do an infrastructure plan, you have to know kind of what's out there. We're just talking about Ciela Grande. We're not talking about the rest. But we've got to have some idea of where these pipes, where you want this stuff to go. What has to be, how much capacity, where are the pipes going to be running? Because we are going to be trying to provide water for this park. So where's that water line going to go? Where are the sewer lines going to run for the baseball fields? So there's some questions, and just saying, just around this little square, we're talking about trying to understand so we don't have to redo the infrastructure in the future to accommodate some other use that may change. And so that's the purpose of this with respect to Ciela Grande.
I understand that, but if we don't, our job's not to figure out those kind of things. Our job's to answer the why. And if we can't, we have to have that why discussion. And so then the engineers can say, well, this is, if you want, this is the why, then that's the what. So I understand that planning the infrastructure is important, but you have to have values to make those kind of plans. You can't just draw something up and say, let's do this. So, and this plan has been presented to several times to just over the past 2.5 years. So I'm not sure what council gave this approval when it happened, but certainly other councils have spoken into it since you arrived with it. So, yeah, but
No.
it's just, it's going to be very difficult for us to pass anything that's not narrowly focused, in my opinion. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, we will move on to regular items number 5. I think that's, where's Lewis? Oh, there he is.
Mr. Chairman and committee again, it's that time of year again that we look at the meeting dates for next year. And this is an action item. So typically it's the 4th Monday of the month. This year for calendar year 2021, there are no adjustments for holidays. All the 4th Mondays cleared all the holidays.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nara, can I interrupt? Counselor Kenner just dropped off, so if you want to note that. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so 4th Monday of the month is the standard infrastructure day. And these are the dates. None of the Mondays fell on a holiday, so there's no adjustments to holidays. And of course, this is a middle deadline, which is deadline for me to prepare my packet. And this is an action item. Just if infrastructure committee is good with these dates, you just vote on them, and I'll share these with City Clerk Sharon Call.
Any comments on the dates? Man, I don't plan my life more than a week in advance, so they all look good to me. Any comments? If not, let's go ahead and if I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the meeting dates for 2021, and we'll submit all the dates on this paper. I'm not going to read them all.
As presented.
As presented. Thank you.
Is there a second? Any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
One thing I'd like to say on meeting dates for December 2020,
Yes.
we will have one item for sure. If you remember, I'm working on the Water Trust Board application. If we make the short list, that's for the water lines in Edgewood, that was last month. If we make the deadline, if we make the short list, we have the window from December 14th to January 14th to come up with a resolution of support, whatever offer they give us financially. So it would be one item on infrastructure. Just want to give you a heads up. I know sometimes we like to cancel December, but That's the legislative window that we have to deal with financially.
You know, we'll make it happen. We'll make it
Okay.
happen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm wondering, viewing the time, and I don't want to have to rush this next bit.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
Take another month, read all that I gave you, and next month's abstract will be the same with the date change on the top of the heading.
yeah, unless any other of the counselors have a problem with booting that till next month, because it's important, but it's not urgent.
Yeah, and I gave you a lot to read and
It's a
digest.
lot, Yep.
And counselors, if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to call me or come to my office and we can visit. Just,
Yeah,
This-
and I certainly would highly recommend that, because I think that this is something that, it's a lot of work, but I think I think, as we've been talking about, I think it's going to really help out and help us get some of these road situations funded and taken care of, so. So unless there's any objections, we'll just skip over then, item number 6.
okay. Item number 7, department reports. Any questions on the department reports? We have Lorenzo Sanchez, Utility Director here, and I believe we have Daniel Mendiola, wastewater in the holding room. And then we also have Trent for facility maintenance on projects. If you guys have any questions on any of the departments of what we're doing with any of those departments. Everybody's been busy. It never stops, COVID or not. We still have to have the infrastructure. Just like the Garden Bridge, you never know what's going to happen when you come to work every day, something new. I know I can probably speak for Trent on the facility side. Something's always breaking down in all the buildings that we have. That's a never-ending story.
With the bridge, I wonder if you might not partner up with Public Affairs to make a press release explaining what you discovered, and
We're on the same page. I already reached out to the Roswell Daily Record before infrastructure today.
Okay, great.
I asked them to listen to infrastructure, and then if Juno wanted to do a story, we could go out there, she could take some pictures and
Yeah, because I
and
think
get
it's
it out.
important. Again, there's a lot of, I understand you guys are doing what you can. There's a lot of frustration on the outside, so the
And-
best thing we can do is communicate. at this point.
I feel where you're coming from.
Yeah, okay, great. Any other business, any public comments? Anybody here to comment for public, or anybody online? No? Anything else from any counselors? If not, it's 5:02, and the Infrastructure Committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.